I still remember the day I joined Nexus Technologies like it was yesterday. 3 years ago, walking through those glass doors with my brand new pantsuit and a heart full of ambition. I was ready to prove myself, to climb that corporate ladder everyone talks about. Where are you watching from today? Comment down below. For 3 years, I gave that company everything. Early mornings, late nights, weekends spent hunched over my laptop instead of spending time with friends and family. It'll all be worth it, I kept telling myself. This is how you build a career. And honestly, I believed it. I truly did. My position as an account manager meant constantly juggling client needs, putting out fires, and making sure everyone was happy. It wasn't easy, but I was good at it. Really good. My performance reviews were always stellar, and my clients loved me. My boss, Michael, would often say, "I wish I could clone you." I took pride in that. The company culture seemed great on the surface. We had the standard tech company perks: free snacks, casual Fridays, the occasional team happy hour, and most importantly, they promised substantial bonuses tied to performance and client acquisition. That was the carrot they dangled in front of all of us. Work hard enough, bring in big enough clients, and you'd be rewarded handsomely. Last year was particularly grueling. I was assigned to pitch to Meridian Global, a potential client that would more than double our annual revenue if we landed them. This wasn't just any client, they were the white whale that 3 of our competitors had failed to capture. Everyone said it was impossible. For 6 months, I lived and breathed that pitch. I researched their company history, analyzed their pain points, customized our solutions to fit their exact needs. I practiced my presentation until I could recite it in my sleep. My social life disappeared completely. My apartment became a shrine to post-it notes and strategy documents. The day of the pitch, I was terrified but prepared. I remember standing in that boardroom, facing 12 stern executives, knowing this was my moment. 3 hours later, I walked out with a signed letter of intent. Meridian Global was ours. The office erupted when I returned. People I barely knew were high-fiving me. Michael hugged me and said, "This is career-defining, Sarah. You just changed the game for all of us." That night, at the impromptu celebration, our CEO, Gerald, made a toast. Thanks to Sarah's incredible work, we're entering a new chapter for Nexus, and I want to personally promise that her bonus will reflect the magnitude of this achievement. I remember calling my mom that night, barely able to contain my excitement. This bonus could help me finally put a down payment on a house, I told her. All those extra hours were worth it. Based on our bonus structure and the size of the Meridian account, I calculated my bonus would be around $75,000. Life-changing money for me. For the next few months, I worked closely with the implementation team to ensure a smooth transition for Meridian. The client was happy, our revenue projections were exceeding expectations, and everyone kept reminding me about the massive bonus coming my way. Then came the company-wide email, exactly 1 day before bonus distribution. Subject line: Important update regarding year-end compensation. My heart sank as I read it. Due to unexpected operational costs and strategic reinvestment needs, the bonus pool was being restructured. There would be modest adjustments to ensure long-term company stability. The corporate doublespeak couldn't hide the truth. When I received my bonus notification that afternoon, the number wasn't even close to what I'd been promised. $15,000. An 80% reduction from what I'd earned, what I'd been explicitly promised. I sat at my desk, staring at that number, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. 3 years of loyalty, 6 months of nonstop work, a multi-million-dollar client. And this was my reward? I walked to Michael's office, trying to keep my composure. "I don't understand," I said, showing him the number on my phone. "Gerald specifically said my bonus would reflect the Meridian acquisition." Michael couldn't even look me in the eye. I fought for you, Sarah. I really did. But this came from above. The executive team made the final decision. So the executives, their bonuses got cut too, right? I asked, already knowing the answer. His silence told me everything. I left his office in a daze. That night, I barely slept. I felt used, betrayed, foolish. All those extra hours, all that sacrifice. For what? I considered quitting on the spot, but with my savings depleted from helping my sister through a medical emergency last year, I couldn't afford to be unemployed. 2 days later, Nexus held its annual Year in Review celebration at an upscale hotel downtown. I almost didn't go, but Michael insisted everyone in management needed to attend. "It'll look bad if you're not there," he said. So I put on a brave face and my best cocktail dress and showed up. The event was as lavish as ever. Open bar, gourmet food stations, a live band. I stood in a corner, nursing a sparkling water, watching Gerald and the executive team congratulate each other, laughing and clinking champagne glasses. I was heading to the bathroom when I overheard voices coming from a small alcove near the restrooms. I recognized them immediately. Gerald and Victoria Reeves, our VP of Finance. "The board is thrilled with the numbers," Victoria was saying. "Cutting the bonus pool saved us nearly $2 million, and the employees barely pushed back." Gerald chuckled. "That's the beauty of hiring people pleasers. They're so afraid of rocking the boat." "Like that account manager what's her name? The one who landed Meridian?" Victoria asked. "Sarah," Gerald replied. "Perfect example. Works like a dog, never complains. Perfect person to cut from. They'll never say a word. She'll just keep plugging away, grateful for whatever scraps we throw her." "And she delivered Meridian right into our laps," Victoria added with a laugh. "Can you imagine if we'd actually paid her the full bonus she was expecting? That's a new yacht right there." I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. They weren't just unapologetic. They were proud of what they'd done. They saw my hard work not as something to reward, but as a weakness to exploit. I must have made a noise because they suddenly stopped talking. I quickly stepped back and pretended to be checking my phone as they emerged from the alcove. "Sarah!" Gerald exclaimed with manufactured warmth. "The woman of the hour! We were just talking about the amazing work you did with Meridian." Victoria nodded, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Truly exceptional. You're a real asset to the company." I don't know where it came from. Maybe the shock, maybe self-preservation, but I found myself smiling back. "Thank you both so much. I'm just grateful for the opportunity." "That's what I love about you, Sarah," Gerald said, patting my shoulder. "Always a team player." As they walked away, something shifted inside me. The hurt and anger didn't disappear, but they transformed into something colder, more calculated. If they saw my work ethic as a weakness to exploit, I would make it my greatest weapon. I watched them rejoin the party, laughing and networking, completely unaware that their perfect employee had just declared war. They thought I was naive, that I would just accept their exploitation with a smile. So that's exactly what I would let them believe. I would be the model employee, eager, helpful, unquestioning, all while methodically building the case that would bring them down. I raised my glass in their direction and smiled when Gerald caught my eye. He nodded approvingly, clearly pleased that his perfect example was still playing her part. Little did he know, the performance was just beginning. The Monday after that revealing company party, I walked into the office with a new perspective. The same glass doors, the same open floor plan, the same coworkers, but everything looked different now. What I once saw as a meritocracy was clearly just a stage, and the executives were directing a show where people like me were merely props. But two could play at that game. I'd always been organized, detail-oriented, traits that made me good at my job. Now I would use those same skills to methodically document everything. I created a private email account that night and began forwarding myself copies of every important communication. Project updates, client emails, revenue reports, anything that showcased my contributions. I started keeping a detailed work journal, noting hours worked, promises made, and conversations had. Every time Gerald or another executive mentioned rewards or recognition, I documented it verbatim. The hardest part was maintaining my facade. Each morning, I'd plaster on that eager smile. "Good morning, Gerald," I'd chirp when I passed him in the hallway. "Victoria, how was your weekend?" I'd ask, as if I hadn't heard her laughing about stealing my bonus. I brought homemade cookies to meetings. I volunteered for projects nobody wanted. I became even more indispensable, more eager to please. "You're handling the Meridian account beautifully," Michael told me during our weekly check-in. "The executive team has noticed." I'm sure they have, I thought. But I just beamed with pretend pride. That means so much to me. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. My little evidence collection grew steadily. I discovered a company-wide salary spreadsheet mistakenly attached to an HR email. It confirmed what I'd suspected. Women were being paid significantly less than men in equivalent positions. Junior male account managers with half my experience were making $15,000 more annually than I was. But I needed allies. Carefully chosen ones. Lisa from accounting was my first recruit. We'd always been friendly, sharing lunch breaks and complaining about our commutes. One day, as we sat in the corner of the cafeteria, I casually mentioned the bonus situation. "It was disappointing," I said, keeping my voice light. "I wonder if anyone else had unexpected cuts." Lisa lowered her voice. "Everyone did, except the executive team. They actually increased their bonuses this year. I processed the payments myself." My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. "Really? That seems inconsistent with the email about company-wide adjustments." "Inconsistent is one word for it," Lisa muttered. "Fraudulent might be another." Over the next few weeks, I carefully built a network of trusted colleagues. Marcus from legal, who was frustrated by ethical corners being cut. Denise from HR, who was troubled by the company's hiring practices. James from IT, who had access to the executive email server. Each of them had their own reasons for disillusionment, their own evidence to contribute. I never revealed my full intentions to any of them. I was just a concerned employee, gathering information, trying to understand the company better. "I'm just trying to be more strategic about my career," I'd say with an innocent shrug. Meanwhile, I strategically took on responsibilities that gave me access to more sensitive information. When Victoria mentioned needing someone to help organize the quarterly executive presentation materials, I eagerly volunteered. "I'd love to learn more about the big picture strategy," I said, eyes wide with admiration. "Plus, I'm great with PowerPoint animations." She laughed condescendingly. "That's why we value you, Sarah. Always willing to pitch in." Those executive presentations contained gold mines of information: profit margins, executive compensation packages, board discussions about controlling labor costs while celebrating record profits. I documented everything. The most valuable discovery came through an unexpected source. Our annual compliance training required all employees to complete an online module about labor laws. As I clicked through, I realized something disturbing. Nexus was violating at least 3 major labor regulations. They were classifying full-time employees as contractors to avoid benefits, requiring unpaid overtime disguised as team-building events, and systematically underpaying employees based on protected characteristics. I began researching labor laws at night, carefully using my personal laptop and home internet connection. I found cases similar to ours, noted the relevant statutes, documented the potential penalties. The more I learned, the more clearly I saw the magnitude of Nexus's violations. One evening, as I was working late, purposely making sure Victoria noticed my dedication, my supervisor Michael stopped by my desk. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked, his expression serious. We walked to an empty conference room and he closed the door. "I'm worried about you," he said finally. "You've been taking on more and more work, volunteering for everything, always the first one in, last one out." I smiled. "I just want to contribute as much as I can." "That's admirable, but—" He hesitated. "Look, I've been here longer than you. I've seen how this place works. They'll take everything you're willing to give, and they'll never give back what you deserve. They're using you, Sarah." For a split second, I considered telling him everything, but something in his resigned expression stopped me. Michael was a good guy, but he was also part of the system. He saw the exploitation but had chosen to accept it. "What do you mean?" I asked, blinking innocently. "The company has always been good to me." He looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. "Just take care of yourself, okay? Nobody else here will." "Of course," I said brightly. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm doing great. Really." As he walked away, I felt a twinge of sadness. This performance was exhausting, pretending to be the naive employee who hadn't yet realized her value. But it was working. The executives increasingly trusted me with sensitive information, never suspecting I was methodically building a case against them. 6 months after the bonus incident, I made my most significant discovery yet. While preparing materials for a board presentation, I found an email thread explicitly discussing how to manipulate the bonus pool to benefit executives at the expense of lower-level employees. Gerald had written, "The account managers are so desperate for approval, they'll accept whatever we offer. Sarah Landing Meridian proves we don't need to incentivize with actual money, just the promise of it." I forwarded it to my private email with hands that barely shook. The final piece of evidence. Now I just needed the perfect moment to use it. That moment was approaching faster than I expected. Annual reviews were coming up, and with them, a new round of bonus allocations. This time, I would be prepared. They thought I was naive. They thought I was a pushover. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The annual review season arrived with its usual mix of anxiety and anticipation throughout the office. For most employees, it was a time of stress, wondering if their efforts would be recognized, if they'd get that raise, if their bonus would cover even a fraction of their financial goals. For me, it was the final act in a performance I'd been perfecting for nearly a year. I sat across from Gerald and Victoria in the glass-walled conference room, hands folded neatly in my lap, expression open and eager. Michael sat to the side, reviewing my accomplishments for the past year, the continued success of the Meridian account. 3 additional clients I'd brought in, countless late nights and weekends sacrificed. "Sarah," Gerald began with that practiced warmth that now rang so hollow to my ears, "your performance this year has been nothing short of exemplary. You've become the standard against which we measure all account managers." Victoria nodded, tapping her expensive pen against my review form. "The executive team has been particularly impressed with your willingness to take on additional responsibilities. Your work on our quarterly presentations has been invaluable." I smiled, ducking my head with rehearsed modesty. "Thank you. That means so much coming from both of you." "We have an exciting opportunity we'd like to discuss," Gerald continued. "A special project that requires someone with your dedication." The special project, as they described it, was essentially taking on the workload of 2 departing employees without additional compensation. They framed it as leadership development and a fast track to future advancement. I recognized it for what it was, more exploitation disguised as opportunity. "I'd be honored," I said, my voice warm with false gratitude. "I'm always looking for ways to contribute more to the company." The relief on their faces was almost comical. They truly believed I was still that eager to please employee who would accept anything they offered. "Excellent," Gerald beamed. "We'll set up access to the necessary systems next week." Perfect timing. As they wrapped up the meeting with vague mentions of compensation adjustments to be determined, I maintained my performance to the very end, thanking them profusely, assuring them how excited I was for this opportunity, promising to exceed their already high expectations. The moment I left that conference room, everything changed. The time for playing Naïve was over. I went straight to my desk, opened my private email account, and sent a message to the labor attorney I'd been consulting with for the past 3 months. Meeting confirmed. Proceeding as discussed. Then I began executing the plan I'd meticulously crafted. Step 1. I reached out to the 12 former employees who had experienced similar bonus theft and who had agreed to provide testimony. Their statements were already prepared and notarized. Step 2. I compiled all the evidence I'd gathered: the salary discrepancies, the misclassified employees, the documented wage theft, the emails about manipulating the bonus pool, the recordings of false promises. My personal laptop contained over 300 files, carefully organized and backed up in multiple secure locations. Step 3. I submitted formal complaints to the State Labor Board and the Federal Department of Labor, detailing Nexus's systematic violations and providing supporting evidence. My attorney assured me the case was airtight. Step 4. I reached out to the 7 current employees who had agreed to join the complaint. Each had their own documentation to add, their own stories of exploitation. The final step was the most satisfying. I requested a meeting with the board of directors, bypassing Gerald and the executive team completely. As a senior account manager responsible for their largest client, it wasn't entirely unprecedented, unusual, but not impossible to justify. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Gerald found out about it on Monday and immediately called me into his office. "What exactly do you need to discuss with the board?" he demanded, his friendly facade cracking for the first time. I smiled, channeling the same innocent expression I'd perfected over the past year. "I just have some insights about the Meridian account that I think would be valuable for them to hear directly. You've always encouraged us to think strategically about client relationships." He seemed suspicious but couldn't quite articulate why. After all, I'd been the model employee. What could he possibly have to fear? Tuesday morning, I dressed in my most professional suit, gathered my materials, and walked into the boardroom with confidence I no longer needed to hide. 8 board members sat around the massive table, with Gerald and Victoria positioned at one end, clearly uncomfortable with my presence. "Thank you for meeting with me today," I began pleasantly. "I've been with Nexus for over 4 years now, and there are some matters I believe require the board's immediate attention." What followed was a methodical, evidence-based presentation that left no room for denial or deflection. I outlined the systematic wage theft, the bonus manipulation, the labor law violations, the misclassification of employees, the gender-based pay discrepancies. All of it backed by incontrovertible evidence, much of it in the executive's own words. The board members' expressions shifted from polite interest to shock to grave concern. Gerald's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Victoria stared at the table, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "As of yesterday," I concluded, "formal complaints have been filed with both state and federal authorities. 14 current and former employees have joined the complaint. My attorney believes this will result in significant penalties and mandatory back pay for affected employees." I paused, making eye contact with each board member. "I'm bringing this to you directly before it becomes public knowledge, because I believe Nexus can still do the right thing. Implement transparent compensation policies. Provide the back pay that was wrongfully withheld, and hold accountable those who deliberately implemented these exploitative practices. The aftermath was swift and decisive. The board launched an internal investigation that confirmed everything I'd presented. Gerald and Victoria were forced to resign within a week. The company faced substantial fines, but avoided the worst penalties by cooperating fully and agreeing to implement comprehensive reforms. All affected employees received their full back pay plus interest. The company implemented transparent compensation policies and third-party oversight of bonus allocations. And me? I received a formal apology from the new interim CEO, along with an offer for a leadership position with a salary that actually reflected my value. I declined. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk as the interim CEO made one final plea. "We're really hoping you'll reconsider," he said. "The company needs people like you to rebuild trust." I smiled, a genuine smile this time. I've accepted a position elsewhere. One where my contributions will be valued from day one, not after I've been forced to demand it. As I walked toward the elevator with my small box of personal items, Gerald appeared in the hallway. His face was drawn, his posture defeated. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw recognition there. He finally understood that I had never been as naive as he'd assumed. "I was patient," I said simply, and walked out of Nexus Technologies for the last time, head held high, knowing that justice, while delayed, had finally been served. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's simply having the patience to collect evidence, build a case, and then calmly present the truth that others have worked so hard to hide. They thought my work ethic was a weakness they could exploit. In the end, it was the strength that brought them down.